Well, let's talk about Ivanka Trump's trip to India. Joining us on the program tonight, Ambassador K.C. Singh. We have Jyoti Malhotra, consulting editor of the Indian Express, here with us. Raymond Vickery, senior advisor of the Albright Stonebridge Group, joining us via Skype from Washington. Mr. Sheshadri Chari, member of the BJP's National Executive. And we go first across to Los Angeles to Manasvi, who is a friend of Ivanka Trump's and joins us straight from there. Manasvi, are you, I'm sure, not surprised that Ivanka's got such a warm welcome here in India, although she faces a lot of criticism back home in the United States?
Yeah, I think she's, I've been following the news. I think she's touching the hearts and the minds of Indians in Hyderabad. I think she's doing a great job. She's one of the most trusted advisors to President Trump, his beloved daughter. And if you follow his life, President Trump's life, right from his business to his campaign, she's always been there. So I think this is a great step, a remarkable stride in forming a strong US-India relationship. I think this was a narrative set by RHC and my father, who I'm representing today. And, this started with our campaign, Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar, where he came to our rally and said, we love Hindus, you will have a true friend in the White House. And they repeat the same thing over again and reaffirm it, whether it be the Diwali function in the White House last month. So I think we've set this narrative and we're going forward, and it's a great time ahead. And this summit, which encourages women, is a great time to show the world that we can come together and promote, women and empower them and grow economies together.
Well, Manasvi, that's all lovely, but the fact is that the reason Ivanka Trump is the president's most trusted aide is because she's his daughter. And the criticism is that what other qualification does she have to represent the United States on a world stage, which is why the US Secretary of State has snubbed her and has not sent senior State Department officials on this trip. It's actually quite a story in the United States that he's, in a sense, boycotting this visit. So what is her qualification? Because here the BJP criticizes dynasty and nepotism. But what is Ivanka Trump if not dynasty?
I think there's a little bit of unnecessary media speculation. Nobody's snubbing anybody. Secretary Tillerson was there last month, in India. And what I feel is that, she has great abilities. The president believes in her. Even though she's not a political figure, her opinions are valued a great deal, and she's worked a lot. She's working so hard for women to, empower them, to help them in business. And let's focus on the positive here. Let's not, focus on, nobody's snubbing anybody. So I think let's focus on the positive. I think we have a great future ahead. From this summit itself, you can see US is, noticing that India is an emerging power, and it's trying to have a strategic partnership with India. So let's look at the positive here.
Well, Ambassador Singh, it's interesting. You have a situation today where you have the president's daughter, an unpaid advisor to the president, whose own role in the White House is repeatedly questioned in the US, who has been invited by the government of India, is representing the United States here. The State Department isn't on board. So you have this very unusual situation. But it is actually the best way to get through to Donald Trump, isn't it? And in that sense, is India just being pragmatic in how it's dealing with the United States?
Absolutely. That's an American question, whether she should be sent by President Trump or not, or whether she should be advising him. But as far as the countries are other countries are concerned, you have to go through the channels that the President of the US chooses. Her husband is de facto running the Middle East policy. He was in Saudi Arabia a week before the power grab by Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And if you notice today, her tweet, Ivanka's tweet, was immediately retweeted by President Trump. So he's very closely monitoring what she's doing in India. So as far as we are concerned, she is the chosen channel, and the relationship being very close to the president, it leads you right there. So there are no problems. Of course, she gets to talk about her program. She talks about MeFi, empowerment of women. Now, much of what they are saying would be at variance with what Trump stands for. Because, she is the fairy princess presenting a very charming image of US women empowerment. And you've got a father who's got charges on, on treatment of women, etc., which are hovering around him. He's supporting in a senator election, he's supporting someone who's got similar charges. But those are US domestic issues. she is their ambassador at the moment representing them. And I think US State Department is indirectly represented because the director of US Aid was very much there. She made him stand up at one stage during the lecture.
Yeah.
And then, of course, she gave fulsome praise to Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi was able to talk about his programs of Mudra, of Moody's upgrade and so on and so forth. So everybody is using the program for whatever they can get out of it. Now, whether this leads to any great entrepreneurial links would depend on basics. Whether US is willing to open itself, US is willing to share technology, and US is willing to allow Indians to, qualified Indians to travel there on visas. Those questions are not going to be addressed or they are answered.
Well, so Mr. Charia, I'm sure you would then broadly agree that the Indian government is really just being smart about this and dealing with Donald Trump the best way that it can through his daughter. But, you know, as someone who watches and observes foreign policy so closely, as a veteran yourself, you don't find it a little odd that, you know, you have someone who doesn't really have an office per se, who's coming here, you know, and like I said, the BJP talks about dynasty and criticizes it. But what is her qualification to be talking to India about anything at this point?
See, the prerogative of choosing an advisor rests with Donald Trump. We cannot advise Donald Trump as to whom he should have as advisor. It is his choice. Having chosen his own daughter as his advisor and the kind of power trajectory that she has and also her husband has, I think the best course available for us is to deal with the power block in Washington DC, and that's exactly what we are doing. A. B. She holds an office. Advisor to the President of USA is an office that she is holding. The fact that she is the daughter is a very different issue. So it is for American administrative service and the US departments. They have to take care of all these things. If they think appointing one's own daughter is not the right way of conducting business, they can advise. But as long as she is the advisor and she is also an entrepreneur, she has done great job as far as her business is concerned. So she is coming here, and then she is coming here as the representative of the President of the US. So you cannot say that, look, we don't want this lady, we would expect somebody else so and so to come. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is, I think most of the things that she has spoken about economic partnership and strategic partnership, even security partnership and the new architecture that she was talking about, I'm sure all this speech is vetted by the DC, and the White House staff is capable of looking into what she is supposed to say and what she is not supposed to say. So I think going by her speech, it's actually not Ivanka Trump who is putting a stamp of approval on Modi and Indo-US partnership. It's White House which is extending the kind of partnership that they are thinking of. So I think it's an important meeting. The meeting went off very well, and I think we have played our cards very well. We are here to do as much economic progress as possible. We have to set our own house in order. We need jobs. We need to strengthen Make in India. We need to do also
I think as far as India is concerned, it's played its cards.
The Prime Minister spoke about GST. Passing GST is not important. We have to create more goods and more services.
No, and what you said about India playing its cards right is certainly the point. But I want to try and understand more about Ivanka Trump, the phenomenon, and why, you know, she's getting the kind of welcome that she is here, the kind of media interest there is in her vis-a-vis what the narrative is back home. And Raymond Vickery, if I could ask you about that. Just as Ivanka was coming to India, there was this story in the US media raising questions about her business practices, including in India, and about how women who work particularly in her businesses in countries like India, how they're treated, what their working conditions are. And this is ironic given that this is an entrepreneurship summit about putting women first. How is that controversy really playing out there?
Well, I think it's absolutely a good thing that she's there. Economic engagement between the U.S. and India has been a driver of the strategic relationship. So anytime you have engagement on a subject like entrepreneurship, I think that that's all to the good. That having been said, I hope that Ivanka will take back to her father the theme of the conference, which is women first, not America first, women first and prosperity for all. And I hope that she'll send the economic message to her father that this idea of there's a winner and loser in every economic engagement is not the right one, that we ought to have engagement across the board and that these can be win-win kinds of situations. There has been a lot of criticism here. She has her own brand. She's not been the company that she has not relinquished ownership in it. There's some question as to whether there's conflict of interest, and there's also a question of whether or not the people are being treated correctly who are making the goods sold under her name. There's not been a willingness to disclose which companies those are, where they are. Those things all need to be corrected. She needs to be able to step back from brand building and send the message that in the United States interest, in India interest, that economic engagement is a driver of a strategic relationship, and that we have to follow the theme of the conference, which is women first, prosperity for all. I think with that, it can be a win-win situation.
Do you think that she's a good ambassador for the United States, that she's a good ambassador for the White House? Because this is not her first trip abroad. She has been to other countries. There have been mixed responses to her. But what do you think? Do you think she represents the U.S. capably?
Well, we have a new ambassador there, Ken Juster, and Ken Juster is a very fine and experienced guy, and he is helping guide her. You take the kinds of representatives that are requested. It was Prime Minister Modi who invited Ivanka Trump to come to India. I think it would have been rude in the extreme to say, oh no, we won't do it because she's not qualified to do that. That having been said, it's no substitute for doing the tough work on what happens with textiles, what happens with H-1B visas, indeed what happens to further the role of women in economic engagement. It's an underutilized resource both in the United States and in India. We've got a long way to go. Whether she's the best ambassador or representative to be able to make that point is a matter of question. It is no substitute, though, across the board engagement.
Absolutely, that's very interesting the way you've put that, and I'll take that to Jyoti Malhotra here, which is your assessment of her. Like, we were talking about her being in other countries. You know, she's actually a pretty popular figure in Japan, but you know, she was addressing a more than a half-empty audience when she did this month in Japan. She got booed in Germany for her stand on her father's, saying that, you know, he respected women's rights and so on. How do you think she's come across to the world, though?
So, Nidhi, let me say the following. The first is that there's nothing wrong with laying out the red carpet for Ivanka Trump. She is the president's very powerful daughter, and clearly she has his ear. So if the Indians do lay out the red carpet and she says nice things about Prime Minister Modi and about India and about the clean streets of Hyderabad, where you know that all the beggars were rounded up and sort of thrown in, you know, some sort of corner, that's good for India. But let me also say that, listen, I think we have to be clear what we really want. It may not be up to us to get what we want, but here is it is what it is. Donald Trump was on a 10-day trip across Asia, which began in South Korea and ended in China not so long ago. He didn't come to India. Let's be very clear about that. He sent his daughter Ivanka Trump. Now that will immediately tell us where we stand in the priorities of this U.S. administration. That's fine. I don't think we should complain about that too much. And the fact that, you know, Prime Minister Modi did go out of his way when he was there earlier in the summer. He was sort of hugging the U.S. president, and that's okay too. It's really nice, I think, to have a personal rapport with world leaders. But let's be very clear. What is it in America's national interest, and how does it cohere with India's national interest? Now, if we want the Americans to be nice to India, you know, open up the sort of economic partnership, whether it's in terms of visas, that's been already spoken about. What is it that the Americans want? They want us to buy more defense goods. They want us to make friends with Pakistan so that American troops inside Afghanistan can have a better sort of, you know, a more streamlined environment in which to operate. The Americans don't like the fact that there are terrorist havens in Pakistan. They cannot do very much about it. Donald Trump's comments again and again have not translated on the ground as to changing the behavior of the Pakistanis. So if India is rolling out the red carpet for Ivanka Trump, that's all very well. But I think we have to also know that this hero worshipping of a Barbie doll type of figure, however powerful she is, should only go that far. I don't think India's women, you know, I mean, I think it's a little strange that here is this woman who's defending her father, who has a terrible record with women,
yeah, and sexual harassment.
And yet we have to sort of heroine worship this lady, which is fine. If she's a representative of father, we will give her the respect that she deserves. But we have to get real about Ivanka Trump.
Casey is saying, interesting, get real about Ivanka Trump. And also, I think what Jyoti was saying is also get real about the India-US relationship. I mean, do you think the fact that Trump went to all these, on his Asian tour and didn't come to India in that tour, sent a message also about his priorities?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, yes, it was clear. His first trip was to Riyadh for the so-called Sunni summit. And the second one was to East Asia, because in terms of his priorities, North Korea is an existential threat. China is an extremely important country, so he had to rebalance relations and really decide how he has to deal with them. India is fine. It's an important element of what he considers as one bookend of Indo-Pacific. So we got the Defense Secretary, we got the Secretary of State, and we got Ivanka. And I think we must realize, I agree with Mr. Vikri when he says that essentially India is being viewed through the economic window. And therefore, with the strategic quotient attached to it, which is okay with us, because we don't want to become a US ally or do everything US wants to do in this area or anywhere else. That gives us strategic independence. We are also interested essentially in the economic relationship. But how much can Ivanka swing that relationship is very doubtful, because it goes to core beliefs of President Trump. He's not going to change his visa policy. But yes, he may just be more attentive to transferring technologies, more forthcoming in terms of maybe a relationship at the entrepreneurial level. That is something which needs to be explained to him, that it's not a zero-sum game. When you say make in America, and this Prime Minister Modi has also said, although how they're going to do it, we don't know. Can you have America first and India first, and both can subsist together? I think that is what needs to be worked out, because you can't have both going at the same time and yet not gelling with each other.
Well, Mr. Chari, your thoughts on that, on the realism of the India-US relationship, and what Jyoti also said, that by all means welcome her, respect her, but also get real, you know, about her. Do we go a little overboard have we gone a little overboard in how we have sort of looked at this entire visit?
No, I don't think anybody is going overboard as far as Ivanka's visit is concerned. And I think we have played our card very well. We obviously we did not, the Prime Minister did not take her to any state which has not done well. Hyderabad has been on the economic map of the world. Hyderabad was the first city which had a roaring business as far as IT business is concerned, and it's directly connected to the Silicon Valley. And there are a number of people from here who are working in Silicon Valley, and so Hyderabad is one of those cities. The next, probably the next city would be Tamil Nadu, Chennai, where number of people working in Silicon Valley may be as good as people from Hyderabad, or less or more. But these are the real areas where things are taking place. As far as the service industry is concerned, These are the most happening places. So that was one of the reasons why she was taken to Hyderabad. And I think going by the speeches made by Ivanka Trump and also Narendra Modi, I think our agenda is very clear. We are not expecting huge amount of business to flow from US to India right from tomorrow morning 8 a.m. onwards. So we have to do our own part of the homework. We have to tweak some of our own things, and that's why the Prime Minister mentioned that some of the archaic laws which were actually roadblocks in our economic progress have been removed. There are some more, even those will have to go. And then he also mentioned about Make in India. So these are Make in India and GST are some of the things that we have to set our own house into
As you
order.
said, you're keeping the
However much
expectations
the
real
Americans
from this visit.
So
You're being realistic about the expectations.
keel.
Yeah, absolutely. So Manasvi, let me just give you the last word since we began with you. Let's end with you as well.
Obviously, I am very realistic.
Yeah. And so I want to ask Manasvi, what does Ivanka, what did she know about India before coming here? Did you ever talk to her about India? What did she know about India?
Yes, absolutely. They know,
Sure.
They always believe that Hindus are the most peace-loving people.
There are people
Hindus
of other
are different
religions
from
also
Indians.
in India.
I know. You know, you keep talking about Hindus all the time. India is a land, 80% of India's population is Hindu. But India is not Hindu. It's a secular country, Manasvi.
The words that have been spoken to me. So I'm just telling you, us as a part of Republican Hindu coalition, we spoke to when we spoke to him, she said, oh, I know you guys are the most, peace-loving people. So I'm just repeating the words that have been spoken to me. And she was so I met her last in the Oval Office at the Diwali celebration, and she was really excited to visit India. She has been to India before, but this time she's doing something really different. She's heading the summit, and she's speaking about a topic that's very close to her. She's always a champion for women's rights, and she hopes to, take it forward from this trip.
All right. Well, still another day to go. So thanks very much to all of you for joining us, looking at Ivanka Trump's visit to India, what it means for India, and certainly Ivanka Trump herself and the kind of controversies that have dogged her all this time. Thanks a lot to all of you for joining us.